What's up, guys? Thanks for joining us today. We got Pete from Origin. If you guys have listened to the other podcast, we had him on previously, I think about a year and a half ago. But we have him back on the podcast with us today. And again, really cool conversation. A little bit of jiu-jitsu's nestled in there. And it's nestled into, honestly, his philosophy of thinking. You'll hear him talk about it. But this will not be the most jiu-jitsu heavy podcast. But if you are a business owner, if you're interested in hearing about manufacturing jobs coming back to the country and hearing about someone do it, or hearing about a guy who went from being on welfare or not welfare, but the government assistance with his family when he was a child, and then now, rubbing elbows with people in sort of the higher up echelons of society and sort of looking at those comparisons and going through that, then it'll be a fun podcast for you to listen to. I enjoyed doing it with him. I was taking notes for myself because there was a lot of stuff that I found useful on a personal level. But again, hopefully you guys enjoy it. And thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. charlottesweb.com. Charlotte's Web is the CBD company that I prefer using. Again, I've talked about it numerous times. I encourage people to give CBD a try. I know that a lot of times when people talk about different supplements and things like that, it can sometimes come across almost like snake oil. There's just too many benefits. And, again, as a guy that grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s with all the crappy supplements that were out, I get you, right? But again, it's a worthwhile supplement to try. And I always encourage people to try it out for a month to see what kind of effect it has on them. For me, I personally like having it at nighttime as part of my sort of winding down, getting ready for sleep routine. And I feel like it helps me to help support healthier sleep cycles. But again, there's a lot of different benefits. And if you've never really looked into it at all, or what kind of benefits it has, you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com. You can do that. And then again, if you decide to buy something, you can save some money by using the promo code Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. If you guys have ever seen, Matt has a lot of cool gear on his website, a lot of good stuff, gis, rash guards, t-shirts. I mean, it goes down to things like fanny packs and stuff. I like his designs. I like the quality of the gear. And that's why I paired up with him before for some of my no-gi gear that I've worn in competitions and had prepared for some of you guys that follow me. So again, I really like his stuff. And again, if you've never gone on his website, check it out. EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. And if you guys find something that catches your eye, snag it and use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And also thanks to Manscaped for helping us make the podcast happen. Manscaped is the premier men's grooming company. If you guys have been on their website, then but if you haven't been, they have a lot of different stuff. And it used to be all about like ball trimmers was the big thing. But now they've expanded their arsenal of gear and weapons that you can use to groom yourself. Very aggressive sounding thing.
Destroy your ball hair.
It's being very like militant for dealing with your bodily grooming. But again, they have expanded a lot over the last couple of years. And so again, they have the trimmers obviously that you can use for whatever body part you want to, but they've got colognes, balms, and things like that, lotions. Everything smells amazing. All of the trimmers are top notch. The quality's great. And everything comes in like nice packaging. So I think that if you're looking for a gift for someone, it could be a great gift for a guy if you don't really know what to buy him. Because again, I think guys are one of those things where we don't normally talk about grooming stuff very often, but like when we get something that's good, we actually like it. Like I remember getting a safety razor.
Yeah.
Like the actual, like instead of like, because it was one of those things where like I was talking about it. And I hated the fact that I was spending all this money on these cartridges.
Yeah.
Cartridges so damn expensive, bro. Like I remember like I used to use like one of like the one with the 3 blades, and it was like, oh, it's a big deal. And the damn thing was like, it would cost like $15 or $20 for an exchange, right? Whereas like the safety razor was more expensive, but then I'm getting razor blades and razor blades like cheap.
Yeah.
A couple bucks and you got like a ton of them. And so I remember got it as a gift and I was like, I really like this. This is great. I didn't buy it for myself, but I really liked it. And same thing with like some of this stuff. Again, if you don't know what to get a person, get them a gift of some grooming stuff. And again, I imagine that they'll probably enjoy it. And again, if you guys want to go to their website at manscaped.com, the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order and free shipping at checkout. And if you want to support the podcast directly, you guys probably know this. If you listen to the podcast more than once, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And upon joining our Patreon, you get access to exclusive content, a library that we've created that has little snippets with each guest that we've ever had, along with things from just Eugene and I. We have narrated roles in there. There's a seminar that's in there that I recorded. Eugene has a warm-up stretching routine specifically for jiu-jitsu. A lot of stuff and more available to you at the Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. If you listen to the podcast, if you enjoy it, it's a great way to get more of it and support the podcast and continue it at the same time. And last but not least, if you want to join my email list, the Chew Crew, you can do that by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. Upon joining, you'll get access to some exclusive ebooks that I give away for free that'll help you out with your training, either developing a game plan for your next competition, learning how to change the way that you drill techniques and how to develop some focus for your game. And you get access to these, and then you get my daily email that I send out, which again, if you like my videos, you like my podcast, you'll like my email that I send out. And beyond that point, you can unsubscribe at any time. And so, guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast with Pete. We'll talk about Origin, talk about some of the other companies that he's involved with, and talk about all the stuff that I mentioned earlier.
So yeah, like in the past year or two, as far as like business life, any major kind of changes or kind of what's been kind of going on with you?
Yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, we've continued trying to rebuild supply chain. So we ended up buying a couple of factories. I don't know if we had done that last time.
No, you hadn't, because when I came up to the Origin camp, that was like when you were filling me in on these factories that you had bought and having to come in there and just overhaul the culture and everything else, and just a whole thing.
Disaster.
So when you buy, like, you bought factories that were already functioning, already working, people were already employed there?
Yeah. So we purchased one. It was in Asheboro, North Carolina. So Asheboro, North Carolina was the hosiery capital of the world. So you think about pantyhose, right?
Okay.
So you have all these mills over this town, and that's what they did. Like New England, North Carolina was a manufacturing mecca. So it's died over the past 30 years, like everything else has in all these small towns across America. And I think it was 2008. It was ranked one of the fastest dying cities in America. If you go into like 60, there's a 60 minutes like bit on Asheboro, North Carolina, and how it's dying. Well, anyways, they kind of took the bull by the horns and decided we don't want to be known as that town. So they kind of reinvented themselves. There's some good foodie spots and good restaurants to eat. But a lot of dead factories. A footwear plant actually was torn down about 6 weeks ago. But there was this one factory there that made knitwear, and it was called Wells Hosiery. It was one of the last surviving hosiery factories. And over the past 15 years, they've converted into to try and survive, converted into apparel manufacturing plant. And so we started working with them for our knitwear. And the moment I walked into the factory during COVID, I walked out and I was like, we gotta buy this company. We got to buy this factory. Like they're technically sound, like the way they can apply zippers and do flat seam stitching. There's no technical manufacturing plants left in America in any quantity. And so you got to go to China or Bangladesh or Pakistan, mostly China, when it comes to technical sewing capabilities. And this factory was very technical in the things they could do. So it wasn't for sale. Ended up flying the owner up to Maine, kind of sold him on our long-term strategic vision. He had some health concerns, and he ended up seeing the vision, and he sold us the factory. And so Jocko and myself and Deco, we came together really quickly, and we pooled our resources and we bought it. Like we didn't even get a banknote. We just bought it. We're like, listen, we're going to take what we earned and we're just going to invest it. And so we bought this factory out of pocket. So it's kind of a spur of the moment, all in risk, but we just felt like it needed to be done. So we got this factory. I got a dude down there, Jason, who, has such tremendous institutional knowledge and supply chain and manufacturing, everything. So we got him going. And then shortly thereafter, Black Friday hit and we oversold denim, and we've been trying to figure out how we're going to be able to grow our denim business when it comes to manufacturing, because there's no denim left in America. And so when I was down there buying that first factory and negotiating the deal, up the street, like the first time I was there, when leaving, I saw this like massive building, like it's huge, it looked like a campus surrounded by all this barbed wire fence. And as I was driving by, it said Texas Jeans on it. And so I called up Jay. I'm like, bro, I was like, what is this, man? I just left the knitwear plant, and I'm driving by this other factory. Is this a factory, or is it just this abandoned or whatever? He's like, no, it's a factory. They don't have much going on there anymore, but you know, the old timer there, Wally, he was like the jeans guy of North Carolina. He made jeans for everybody. So this is a denim factory. And so we were really struggling with how we're going to figure out how to make denim. And he's like, yeah, basically it might be the last one in America.
Wow.
But they're not doing anything in quantity. So I ended up, it wasn't for sale, ended up getting a hold of the guy, sitting down with him, and this old school, I mean, this dude, he's really in bad health. He probably doesn't have much longer than a year, maybe less to live. Really bad health, really old guy, just a hard charger from like one of the back in the day, like your granddad, you know what I mean? Like that mindset. He's the type, he basically told me the story. He's like, one day I was sitting in my office and my assistant came in and she said, there's someone here to see you. And he's like, no, they can't see me. And she's like, no, he insists. And he's like, what's his name? He's like, Whitey Bulger. And he's like, what? And so Whitey Bulger shows up with like 2 tickets for him to go to New York City because the dude wasn't paying they were making Calvin Klein jeans at the parent textile trade. Is, you know, heavy in mafia, I guess you could say. They weren't paying their dues. And so it was this whole thing. So this guy's, you can just imagine how hard he is. The dude is like, he's a hard dude. And so the first time I met with him, he goes, you know, if I was 20 years younger, he goes, I would kick your ass. Like basically you can't do it. I can do it. And I'm like, no, I think we can. You know, I didn't want to go head to head with him, so I had to use a little bit of jiu-jitsu, you know, in the negotiation. But yeah, we negotiated over 20 hours. Okay. 20 hours over 2 months. And he ended up selling us the denim plant. And over the past year, we've brought this thing back to life. We've dumped a couple $1 million into it. We've reinvigorated the factory with it's the last wash house in America where we can wash denim. It's freaking crazy, man. It's wild to think about. So yeah, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying, like, yeah, in the past 2 years, we've bought a couple factories, added a few hundred employees, and, you know, we're full blown going into building our seasonal line plan right now in a big way.
Yeah, you're going around and getting these, like you said, the last one in America. You may have mentioned it before. When did all of this stuff leave the United States and then get like processed? Was that after things like NAFTA or whatever? Or was it?
NAFTA was the start of it.
Okay.
So the North American Free Trade Agreement really was more of like this, call it a gateway drug.
Okay.
So, you know, the relations with our friends in Canada, you know, the relations with South America, and it basically allowed, you know, production to flow free between these. But if you remember Ross Perot saying, and I think it was a presidential debate, you're going to hear a giant sucking sound. Of our jobs and factories going south. Never really clicked with me what that meant. You know,
Ross Perot, as weird as he was right about a lot of little things, man.
Yeah. Dude was smart. He was smart. And so, you know, you think about NAFTA as a gateway drug, but you know, in America's kind of goal to nation build, this kind of initiative to nation build post World War II, trying to keep countries from going hard into communism, you know, and proliferate this message of the free market. You know, we kind of sold sold ourselves away a bit because we started focusing on keeping China controlled in a way. And the way we did that is through production. You know, we have a society of consumers who consumes, and then the means of production were right here, you know, so we were producing and consuming. And then as we were nation building, we opened up free trade. I didn't say fair trade. We opened up free trade with some of these countries, and really the goal was to make sure that the American economy had the reins on these communist countries and their economies because of the consumer base and the wealth of America. We could keep them going, and of course, capital controls all, right? Like capital controls the world. So it was a way to do that, but I guess the downside, a big downside of that is we sold away the means of production. And so when the WTO, the World Trade Organization, came into play, prior to that, we had quotas. So, you know, the US had government officials that would go around to these different countries and only let so much product come into America. And so we kind of kept it constrained, like, okay, we're going to be able to build stuff in America. We've got this good trade thing coming on, the quotas. We've got these, you know, it's just guidelines like you can bring 200,000 pieces of this into the US. You can bring 2 million pieces of this into the US. Well, the quotas went away. The trade routes opened for basically just massive trade. And so factories in America, as we chased kind of that cheap labor, in China and other places, making pennies on the dollar, you know, forced labor. It wasn't. I've said this before. It was the first one. So the first factory owner who went there, or the first, let's say, corporate entity that said, we can drive a higher profit if we move this offshore. We go offshore, we're going to make this, we're going to decrease our COGS, our cost of goods, by this amount. We're going to drive more profitability for the shareholders. And that's kind of the goal, right? And that's this, we call it runaway capitalism. So, so this whole idea when the WTO came into play is runaway capitalism went rampant. I consider myself a capitalist. You know, I believe in an ethical capitalism, but I believe in the values of America and that you have an upward trajectory and you can change your station in life if you work hard and take some risk on yourself. So, you know, it all went away because the WTO opened it up, and, you know, big money owns big entities, and those entities buy, you know, big fish eat small fish, and they're looking at a balance sheet, and you don't take the human element into play when you're looking at a balance sheet. You know, they don't care about the people. And so it just all started dwindling until there was just kind of like a death of it all. And that took 30 years. You know, I'd say, you know, Ross Perot said giant sucking sound. It took 30 years because in the early 90s, WTO came on, and there's still some surviving factories, but really they all shut down in the 90s while I was in high school, and then into the early 2000s. And the last few of them are shutting down now. So yeah, man, that's the full story on what happened. And I can go way in depth. I actually kept that at a 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
that wasn't even in the trenches.
Well, man, that's kind of like an issue with, you know, I've read several books on different companies and different businessmen and stuff. And one of the things that seems to happen is, you know, sometimes it can be a beautiful thing, but there are times where when these companies go public, right? Like then the only thing that matters is like, you know, how much are the shareholders getting back, right? So instead of being able to make a long-term decision, which maybe you got to take a hit in the early stage, and so your quarterly like profit's not going to be up or whatever, you know, it's going to be a long-term decision. You can't do that because you're always just trying to, you know, make the profit. I remember it was like Richard Branson bought back his company because he went public, and then was like, this is absolute shit because I can't make good decisions for the business. And like you said, be conscious about what I actually want to do, what's the overall mission of the business. So he got with some investors and he bought the business back so that he could have control of it.
Driving shareholder value. And we cover this in the documentary. I'm trying to figure out what I can say without Steve, my exec producer, director, and my partner in this film. He's been on it. And it's freaking crazy what he's discovered and what we're doing. I'll share a little bit. So you're right. They're driving shareholder value when it comes to corporate America. And so you have this idea of the free market, and then you have these publicly traded companies, and the point is to drive shareholder value. And you have a lot of people attached to the value of that company. You have, the New York, firefighters and the EMS, and you have these corporate entities of these folks that want to be able to retire. So I'm trying to give a holistic view that it's not just greed that drives it, but it's greed that drives it in a way.
Yeah.
Because capital flows uphill. It's like the more you have, the more you're gonna get. It's a strange world seeing it, especially for me, a kid who, my mom was on welfare growing up at times, like I started at the bottom, eating government cheese, growing up, and I had a great childhood. Don't get me wrong, but no, we were poor, not poor like the world poor. American
poor. It's different.
Much different.
If you're American poor, you're still doing all right.
You're doing pretty good, yeah. So, anyways, knowing what it looks like growing up on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere, and not growing up with technology, or just kind of lower class, I guess you say, and then being middle class, and my life has changed to the point where now I'm in the I guess you could consider it upper class, and seeing it. I have like a blue collar mindset, but some of the circles I'm in, I'm like, yeah, this isn't my people, but they think differently, and you can learn something from everyone. So I was in a meeting. I was in a meeting. I got to figure out if I can say this or not. Let me just think about this for a second. Yeah, fuck it. I was in a meeting in the Big Apple, and I've got to choose my words, fellas.
Everything can be anonymous. We can use aliases.
Yeah, we'll use aliases. I was in a meeting in the Big Apple, and let's just say I felt like Katniss Everdeen, the girl on fire, walking into this meeting. You go into an elevator with no buttons. It brings you to a floor that doesn't exist. Like it opens up into this, we call it the wormhole. So we're in the Big Apple, and I'm inside the wormhole. The way my buddy Kip, my strategic advisor, says it, he's like, "Oh yeah, Pete, that's the wormhole, man. You don't want to stay in there for too long. Shit gets real crazy inside the wormhole." But being inside the wormhole and looking at like how folks who control the world and control the world's capital look at capital and business, just very interesting perspective. Point being, like, seeing the different levels of society, not just like the middle class, which is where I live and where I play, and where it's like what we're part of. There's a whole another world out there that, in a jiu-jitsu sense, that world has their hooks into the world we know, but that world is different. And that's why I use the example of Katniss Everdeen, the girl on fire, going from her district up to the big city, where they wine and dine you, and it's a big show. So yeah, man, it's been it's good to know and see that, to have context, to know, to be better at how to rebuild the American supply chain and rebuild these communities and factories, because that's not what they're thinking about. Right? They're thinking about driving shareholder value, earning more for whatever reason, and they answer to folks above them. But I got to see the kind of the tippity top of it, I guess you could say. And it's an interesting experience. So yeah,
What'd you
learn.
learn from that? Like, so even though it's
Oh,
not maybe your kind of people in some instances, but what could you take away from the people that have this totally different perspective, almost like a different society altogether? Like, what did you
yeah.
learn, or maybe you could take away to better your business?
It's a really good question. The middle class is focused on the next check, paying their mortgage, their rent, their car payment, getting to the weekend, recreating, having fun, training jujitsu, just focused on um, life and enjoying life, and honestly, the simplicities and pureness of life. And the same things I focus on, having two kids and a wife and living here in New England. They're focused on something much different. Um, I mean, I guess you could say a world without boundaries
Mm.
and rules and laws, yet very structured, um, where the decisions of the world, the decisions we make to open free trade with this country or that country, the decisions we make with policy, the way that propaganda is spread through media,
Mhm.
it's it's by design. It's not happens. It does. It's not. It's
Sure.
by design. We're fed things through algorithmically, through algorithms, through media, through the way a product is presented to us, a way to distract us, to keep us distracted, maybe from what's happening, you know, at a level that maybe we don't understand. As middle class people, we're actually living in a bit of a Hunger Games timeline.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I look at it, going around America's communities, failing communities, mostly, and seeing people, surviving and just getting by. Like it feels a bit like Hunger Games, knowing there's a whole nother level out there that is, and seeing that it's wacky. It's a wacky
Mm.
time to live. I would say that we're moving more away from what America has been known for, which is a strong middle class, a very strong middle class. That is that's the glue that holds everything together. We're moving away from that and starting to create separation again between, let's say, like the rich and the poor, or back in the day, it was the aristocracy and the peasants. And as we shrink the middle class and grow the gap between wealth, upper class, and the lack of the lower class, we're in a very scary point, because that's when these different ideas and ideals come into play that shift the direction for who we are as a country and what we were founded on. It really
Sure.
shifts the direction of that, with some very scary viewpoints
Mhm.
and power moves that can come into play. So it's just a really interesting time to be alive, in this experiment that's, couple hundred and a half years old.
Yeah, well, you start taking away people's opportunities because, back in, say, the 40s, 50s, 60s, stuff like that, you could go and get a job and you could make some money, and it wasn't really that hard to do. I mean, obviously you could go to college and get a higher degree, but you could also go work in a factory or something that was making something,
Yeah.
and you could take care of your family. And, now that's becoming harder. I mean, there's still opportunities out there. You can still get trades and things like that, but that ability to do that is more difficult, especially for some people, depending on where they come from. And in one of his books, Eric Hoffer, there's The True Believer. He talks about the idea that, and again, obviously you can look at history and see this, when things get kind of rough, it allows for more radical ideas to take root, because if things are going pretty well, it's very hard to basically denigrate the present and say, hey, this whole thing right now sucks. But then if you take people and you say, listen, things are getting worse for you, they're not getting better, then it gives someone the ability to then say, hey, here's a radical idea, and that actually has fertile soil to grow in. And then, like you said, with the values that we have in America, then they become at odds with the people that sort of, again, have latched onto a particular ideology that might be diametrically opposed to, the foundings of this country.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say, like, as far as when you started Origin, there's probably a certain mission. Now your eyes been kind of open to some new things, some different things. Maybe it was just building a gi or creating these textiles or like jeans or whatever. But now it's become like this bigger thing almost. It's like you're trying to save or reinvigorate a certain part of like the United States or jobs. Like it's almost like a bigger mission now. Like how's your mission like with Origin really changed?
Yeah, I mean, it changed quickly. At first it was just a crime of passion, right? It was like I tried to find manufacturing in America and in my hometown, and I couldn't. I drove around New England looking for manufacturing. I called mills, and it was like, no, it's gone. So I did what everybody else did, and I was like, all right, we'll have to import gis. Now the place to import them from is Pakistan. So I kind of followed suit with everybody in year number one, and it didn't feel good to send money over to Pakistan and not know what it was going towards. This is almost, I guess, 13, 14 years ago now. And then when I found out that they were ripping off kind of our IP, it's just like, this is like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we supporting? What is the point of all of this? To have like a cool gi that everyone else has with a different logo on it, and nervous to send them any of our innovations, knowing they would just rip it off and sell it into Europe or to other brands. And so, the defining moment for me of getting ripped off and building a factory, that's what I kind of call the crime of passion. There wasn't a plan. I didn't have a business plan, didn't have capital. So it's like cut some trees down up here in Maine in the backwoods and have some logs sawn out, some trees sawn out into timbers, and build a factory. And at first it was just like the first couple of years, it was like just to be in control of your destiny and not be at the mercy of someone in another country and them telling you what you can or can't do. The biggest motivation for me was, you can't do it in America. You need us. You have to have us. And hearing that, I was like, screw you, man. This is freaking America. Like, this for me is the greatest nation on earth, especially when it comes to freedom and opportunity. Like my family immigrated here back in the day into Ellis Island, like most of our, ancestors did. And it's like they came here with nothing, only with a hope and a dream. And they had no upward trajectory. If they could do it then with what they had, which was nothing, why can't we do it now with the abundance of what we have with knowledge and technology and opportunity? And so I just looked at it like, no, we're going to do it and we're going to prove it. And once we prove it, we're going to do it on a big scale. So it quickly went from just like crime of passion to rebuilding America through jiu-jitsu. A lot of people, they're like, oh, Origin does this and that and the other thing. Origin's a badass movement. It's a very cool thing. It's very cool to be part of every day. And I get to cast a long-term strategic vision for the company. I'm honored to do that, but like it's all jiu-jitsu. The whole company was built on jiu-jitsu. I try to tell this to people, like, listen, I didn't have any business experience, like really in-depth business experience. So I just took jiu-jitsu and I applied it to business. I know, you like timing and leverage and when to slow down and when to speed up and, when you're getting flanked and how to flank. And it just I applied it to the business, and then I applied it to the manufacturing line. How do we be efficient? Where's the leverage here? Come to find out years later, that was called lean manufacturing. I called it jiu-jitsu, manufacturing. So, even when it comes to we had to figure out how to build a super durable jiu-jitsu pant because it was the first thing we reinvented, from the trash bag style pant to a fitted pant that was built like a jean that formed to your body. But we figured out like stitch types and ways to fold the fabric and thread weights, and then how to make textiles that were stronger. And so once you make a garment where you're trying to rip the clothes off your friend, in the form of pants, well, what if we just did this in denim? So our denim jeans are jiu-jitsu pants, but it's old school way of making a great product. We were never just going to be a small jiu-jitsu company. That was never the mission. The mission was always to breathe life back into the dream. That is our mission, is breathe life back into the dream through jiu-jitsu. So born on the ground, fighters at heart, and applying that into building a company, but with the durability of jiu-jitsu, the mindset of jiu-jitsu. So, when you look at other companies, Nike started in running, Under Armour started in tight-fitting football shirts, Oakley started in motorcycle grips, Jim Gennard selling that, and then he put silicone on the back of a goggle strap and for motocross, and now you have the goggles that don't come off, and then all of a sudden there's goggles, and all of a sudden there's sunglasses. So like every brand has its roots and heritage in something. Origin has the most, incredible badassery of roots in jiu-jitsu. There's not enough. I'd always say, like, man, I'd love Origin to fight any other company in the world because we would whoop ass. You know what I mean? It's just a bunch of jiu-jitsu dudes. Like half the company trains jiu-jitsu. So, it was never just to be small and bespoke. It was never supposed to be that, this is the wave of freedom. That's what our logo stands for. It's the wave of freedom. Like, how are we going to use jiu-jitsu and everything we know from the mindset of the gentle art and apply it to building a movement and a brand that transcends jiu-jitsu, that transcends Maine, that transcends America, that can reach out and touch all the world like these other brands have done. But how do we do it 100% in America without compromise and without selling ourselves to the lowest bidder? So that's kind of how it started and where it's going. We have massive plans. We're just getting started. I wake up every day like we're a freaking startup. So massive plans.
So here's a question, because obviously you started off as a very, relatively small business.
Yeah.
And now it's growing into something where you own multiple factories and you have business partners and there's capital, I'm sure, being injected into the thing and that sort of thing. What are some of the challenges? And I'm just curious from a business owner standpoint, what are some of the challenges that you have faced moving from that small, super close knit group, where you're just basically doing everything, just by the seat of your pants, to now you're in this situation where, you're probably not, making the geese anymore. Now you're actually trying to put the vision together for the whole darn thing.
Yeah.
And you have all these other people to deal with. It's probably a whole set of skills that you've had to develop in order to be able to manage it. What are some of the, I guess you could say, good, bad, or just difficulties and things like that you've encountered moving into this new phase of the company?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't be all things to all people. As the founder, I guess, and my title is CEO. I'm running I'm really 4 companies, but 2 brands, Origin and Jocko Fuel. And they're both monsters that need to eat, and they eat time and capital. In a big way, they eat time and capital. I had to figure out that they can eat all of my time and they can eat all of our capital. Or I can bifurcate my roles and responsibilities and find people that are a lot smarter than I am to help distribute the time and mind share it takes to feed the monsters. Because you got to have people feeding them. Like I said on a video on our YouTube channel, the enterprise is going to eat $115 million this year. That's what it's going to eat, And so when you break that down into days, you can see what these two monsters are eating every day. They got a big appetite. So you need really solid people. And what I've discovered is that is a blend of people that have come up with you and grown and rose into the occasion, who understand your values and culture that can drive culture, and then bringing in expertise professionals. I say professionals, but really bringing in minds that are way better than you. But taking those minds and blending them with culture, because culture is the most important asset you have in a business. Culture and leadership drive good business. Mashing those together, that's almost like that's hard. It's almost like holding like two magnets and you're trying to force those magnets together.
Sure.
And eventually, if you can do it right, as they go together, one flips and they stick, and that is the most difficult thing. I do HR full time. That's my job. I get to cast the long-term strategic vision. I see the market dynamics to put the pieces together, and I do HR. I never understood why CEOs out in the world get paid so much money, and I'm not one of those CEOs. Jocko, myself, and Deco, we eat what we kill. You know what I mean? And that's always been our mindset. It's like, if everyone's going to win, and if everyone wins and the company wins, we win. And I told you guys earlier, we were able to buy this factory in North Carolina out of pocket. We paid for it in cash. So we got to eat what we kill, and then we decided what we're going to do with it next. And when you think about capitalism and our approach to ethical capitalism, that's the right move for us. So I'm not one of those CEOs that have these massive salaries. I eat what I kill. And if there's years that we don't kill, there's years we don't eat. So with that said, when you look at what a CEO gets paid out in the world, and you look at the burden of the decision they have to make in casting the vision for hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of employees, I get it why they make so much money. It's being a like a fan of good CEOs, like 100%. Like, you guys, you took the risk. It was your vision. You could have lost everything and never recovered, but responsible for building something that supports so many people and so many people's families and so many communities. Like, I get it. I totally get it. But the burden of that also, has turned me gray. With us, we've hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees across, 4 factories, and every decision I make impacts the enterprise, and so the goal is to try to not make too many tuition payments, because that affects the whole enterprise. But merging that culture with people, bringing people up, and them understanding that sometimes I'm going to be very close with them and have really strong relationships, and sometimes I'm going to be distant, but it has nothing to do with them, and it has everything to do with taking care of what's most important, which is making sure this freaking thing is fed. I can't spend too much time on this one thing, or maybe one of my initiatives. I got to spend a lot of time with this person, and this person is someone who trains with me, and they're really good friends with me, and all of a sudden I'm gone for months and months and months, and they think like they did something wrong or whatever. And it's like, no, it actually has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with understanding what the next job is. I have to focus on this. And sometimes it's like all Jocko fuel, and sometimes it's all Origin, and sometimes it's left brain, right brain. And then you're doing that across, 2 brands. So it's left brain, right brain, Origin, left brain, right brain, Jocko fuel. And then you have people and culture over here, and you have people and culture over here. And you have super smart, corporate minds that are way smarter than I am on over here. And then you have these folks that you've brought up, with you on this side, and you're trying to pull their knowledge and apply it to this, but at the same time, pull these folks' knowledge and apply it at this higher level. So that's why I say these two opposing forces, these two magnets. And I'm telling you, if you push hard enough and decrease the friction, it'll flip and stick. But man, it's HR full time to do that. It's constant touch points of communication. I work 7 days a week, all day, every day. I mean, like this thing is a ridiculous piece of technology. I do all my business from my phone. But that's like that's been really hard as I've grown. Like in business. I've moved from a little red Chevy pickup truck, and I get to fly around on an airplane now. But the tool of that tool allows me to get to North Carolina in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So I can be down and back versus 30 hours or 35 hours of drive time, or 10 hours of commercial. So it's like, if it eats time and money, how do you make more time?
Yeah.
I never understood this either. The
obsession
way
with
that,
time.
yeah, that you can take the world. If you can take the world and you can shrink it, you decrease the time it takes to do things. And when you look at how companies and brands compound their growth, it's because they've shrunken that sucker down to the size of a marble, and they can stick it in their damn pocket. Like, you can be anywhere at any time, shaking whoever's hand you need to shake and having that conversation to close the deal. It's such a resource to be able to do that, to shrink it down to marble size. So, we've been able to do that, which has allowed us to compound our growth. So when you look at our growth trajectory, the past 3 years, it's like a hockey stick. And when you look out, 5 or 10 years, it's a hockey stick, and it starts to compound. You go from doing like $600,000 a year, back in the 2015 to now you're doing millions, and then tens of millions in revenue, and then hundreds of millions, and it just gets kind of crazy. And this growth starts to compound, the customer base starts to compound, but also the planning process and the people and the bifurcation of roles and responsibilities and the mind share and who gets what. It's crazy, man. It's not just about having a great product. It's actually everything behind the scenes that matters. And product is just a way for the customer to manifest himself in the belief of the movement and the brand. But it's all the bullshit behind the scenes that actually drives what we're doing. And I'll tell you what, I have been drinking through the freaking fire hose, for the past 5 years on this stuff. It's a crazy world from a kid like me growing up in nowhere, Maine, to step into every day. I step in every day to this thing where I don't have the experience to be the guy I am or to make the decisions I do. But, I guess what I do have is that long-term strategic vision that has driven us this far and ultimately will continue driving us in the future. So Jocko and I and Deco, we get to take the risk. And to answer your question on business partners, like strong business partners are, like really important. Myself, Jocko, and Deco, we're all jiu-jitsu guys. We're black belts. We appreciate each other. We're business partners, but we're friends off the mat, and on the mat, there's just such a tremendous respect for one another. So we just pull that respect into business. I wish more business owners and more business partners should train jiu-jitsu together, because it creates a bond that it's unbreakable and undeniable. So it's been amazing to have strong business partners.
Have you been able to delegate, with the growth? Like it's always hard to kind of have, because I think for me, it's like difficult. Like, this is my vision. I know I can do it. I have this idea. How do you share that vision and find that other people are able to carry the quality, the vision, the perspective that you have? So like, what are some things you do, or what are some ideas on delegating, you know, so,
Yeah.
cause you only have so much time, like you said, and you have to, like, you know, look at big picture, long-term strategies. And if you're doing a bunch of little stuff, you can't do that. It's so much bandwidth you got.
Yeah. So have you guys ever heard of like a brand book? So this is
Brand
our,
book.
I just took this
Okay.
out of my drawer. So this is our brand book. So on Origin, we call it a brand book. On Jocko Fuel, we have a manifesto.
Okay.
You know, because Jocko Fuel is, it's stitching a person into a brand, right? And so a lot of Jocko's like personal aesthetic, along with his approach to the world, you know, is integrated into Jocko Fuel. And so Jocko Fuel is a mindset, um, is a mission driven kind of mindset of being better with no excuses, you know, no compromise. Uh, and Jocko's gift to the world are really his words, his words. That's his gift to the world, his experience and his ability to capture those in words, whether that's audio visual, or through writing. So the Jocko Fuel book, we don't call it a brand book, we call it a manifesto. The Origin, you know, we call a brand book. This is how you align people in everything you do. And it's the simple things, like if you open up the book, you know, there's like a page that kind of has something I wrote, and it kind of lays the foundation of who we are. You know, it has, what do we stand for? Most companies, this is their secret sauce. They don't share it. There's our mission I told you guys earlier: breathe life back into the dream. There's a segment on that. How it came to fruition. You know, there's myself, Jocko, and Deco there in the photo. You know, values can't just be words on a page; they need to be. So you have all these things on what kind of defines us and who we are, and why we do what we do, and you know, and basically it goes into everything of like who we are. You know, the hero, but it's not just the hero. We're not Superman. We're the everyday hero. It's the everyday hero. So everybody can be an everyday hero. You know, not everybody can be Superman. You know, and it just talks about how we show up every day and our key attributes. Like, this is important when trying to tell people like how to buy into what you're doing. You have these key attributes, and so our customer, ways to use the logo, our typography, styles, ways we shoot photos. When you're running a brand and a company with, let's say, thousands, tens of thousands of people, this is your Bible. You know what I mean? And so you're constantly like, hey, refer to the brand book. Like, when I walk into someone's office or workstation, I want to see this thing. I want to see it's like a black belt. It's like wearing a black belt. I want to take that belt and I want to wear it down to white. I want to wear every bit of dye off of that. It's the same thing with this brand book. It's black. I want you to wear the edges down. I have this one guy, Phil Adams. His brand book is like so destroyed. It's half black and half white because the ink is off. It's been cracked and folded, and it's been opened and closed so many times. So this is your Bible, and that's how you start with driving that. Because it's in my head. It can't just be in my head. I can't have this conversation with every single new employee or every business unit all the time. So what's in my head is out of my head. And that's the long-term strategic vision. This is the guiding light and our North Star for what's going to get us to where we go. We can never go back on this. We're not going to change it. We're going to add to it. We're not going to change it. It's the guidelines for success. And this is very important. We finally buttoned this up because it was getting hard without it. We buttoned it up last year. It was
Very cool.
very hard without it. I'd have to have constant touch points and meetings and yes and no and what are you doing? What are you thinking? I haven't done a very good job on the why. So it all comes back to me ultimately.
Well, do you think that making something like that, like a manifesto, the brand book, that kind of thing, do you think that for you, I'm sure getting into it and having your people work with you to create it, do you think that it helped? Because, a lot of times there's things that as people that are business owners or people that feel like they have a mission, they have all this stuff in their head. They have this feeling inside of them that they're on this thing, and then um, sometimes they can mistakenly forget that they didn't get everybody on board with this thing. Do you think that having that maybe even helped crystallize your own values about your company even more so because you put it all in writing, you put it all out there, and maybe gave you some realization to that as well?
The exercise of this, you're saying?
Yeah, the exercise of
Yeah.
actually making it, right? So the idea is like you may think about something, but
Yes.
then when you write it down and you're actually staring at it and you think about it, you're like, that's what I believe, right? Did you have those kind of realizations as you were making it for the company?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I had a great creative director, Kelly, who extracted it from me, and it took 6, 8 months through many iterations. And this word wasn't quite right. Or that ideal wasn't captured quite right, or the purpose or the why behind it wasn't quite right. And so, um, as we distilled it down to, the essence of what makes up Origin, it was an exercise for me that also holds me accountable. And I'll give you an
Mm,
example. I was sitting in my wife's office, and she's our COO for Origin, and I think this was last year. And I was sitting in there with her and HR, and HR proposed like a $2 wage increase, and this was last year. And I was like, "What is that going to have on impact, to the bottom line?" And they're like, "Well, it's going to have, this much impact." And I'm like, "Yeah, have you ran it by finance? Because it doesn't sound like a good idea to do that all at once. Sounds like we should break it up." And so I'm like looking at the balance sheet. I got to make sure we're feeding the monster. I like to call it
mhm,
a monster because what we're building is we're building a company that is going to be America's next big brand. It's going to be $1 billion company, not because the monetary value is important, because when you say that, people are like, oh shit, this is a real thing they're doing. And then normally you'd call $1 billion company a unicorn. They call it a unicorn because unicorns don't exist. They're rare. No one's ever
mhm.
seen one. Few of them are ever built. Unicorns are soft and weak. We call it a Yeti. So when I
Hmm.
refer to feeding the monster, I'm talking about the feeding the 1,000-pound Yeti. This thing's got to eat. So I was talking with our HR person and my wife, and they both were like, they picked up the brand book and they opened it up and they had me read. They had me read this page here, which says we start with people. I said, you guys are right. We start with people. Find a way to make it happen and execute. So it's a way to keep you honest with yourself and your vision, because as you grow and progress, you have new experiences and new learnings, and it starts to sometimes tweak the way you think. Are you still focused on the thing that's most important, the thing that you started with that got you there? It's okay to pivot and change, to measure and change. Like that's the two things that kill businesses. Like you've got to be able to measure, and you've got to be able to change. And when you fail to measure and fail to change, you become stagnant and you eventually die. So if you're not growing, you're dying ultimately. Um, and lack of capital resources can also kill a company. So it's good to have people who are smarter than me in the business who also hold me accountable. But getting the ideas distilled into this form was hard. But man, it's just probably the most important thing we did last year outside of buying
Mm.
those factories was this brand book.
Mm.
And on the Jocko Fuel side, we just finished it up. Jocko and I just had a call on the manifesto earlier this week, Tuesday, and we're finishing that one up now, which is very, very powerful, which is gonna drive that brand also.
Like, is there been something that's been challenging for you
Yeah,
guys as with growth?
man, all of it. Uh, No one's perfect. No plan's perfect. It's never going to go how you think it's going to go. Like, you got to face that fact. People are imperfect. I'm imperfect. The plan is imperfect. The product is imperfect. If you're trying to run a perfect enterprise, you will freaking fall flat on your face every single day. This idea that 80% is good enough isn't, you're not saying 80% is good enough. You're saying, hey man, you got the 80%, that's good enough. Like, you did it. You did it. It's time to move on to the next thing. Or it's time to learn from that, and next time you're going to get 85 or 90. So it's been hard to, I'm not a big delegator, but detach, from things, especially when it comes to the way we represent ourselves to the world and how we position ourselves and the way we talk to the world. For instance, we just hired a new senior creative writer, and I've been the voice of the brand for, since we started. And I do a lot of the writing and, and thinking about how we talk to the consumer. And, before we hired him, I had to have a real heart to heart with him, and he said, you can trust me with your voice. You can trust me with your voice. I'll make sure I take care of your voice. And then last week, we just hired a new VP of creative and design, and it was the same type of thing. I have to trust him with everything creative and design, product, the way it's brought to life in the market, the way the brand looks, consumer facing. And so I've passed on the thing that got us here, which kind of was my creativity, the way I thought about things. I've now passed that on in the past month, all of it. That's very unnerving,
Yeah.
And the reason I did that is to do things like this, is to go out and have conversations and tell the world what we're doing. Like, that's why I have to pass that on, because my job now outside of HR, is proliferating the message. I need 90 million people to hear this story. I need 90 million people. 90 million people gets us to Yeti status, because it's just math at this point. It's data. It's all data. It's all the bullshit behind the scenes, between AOV, average order value, LTV, lifetime value, your basket size, your consumers, your purchasing cycles, your brand heat moments. It's just data. I'm sure you guys know all about it. But you got to have a good team who can interpret, read that data, and then has a plan to scale. I have none of those skills. I'll never have those skills. I admire the people that do. And at the same time, those people who have those skills would be scared shitless to have to run a company or be entrepreneurial in nature, because to them that is scary, and they would have anxiety, all day, every day. Where me, that's my comfort zone. I get my dopamine from that shit. I love it. So I think that's why people are designed the way they're designed, and organize themselves into structure and hierarchy. And if you can do that in a business, and you're in lockstep around those ideas and ideals and values and vision, you've got something real strong and powerful, something undeniable. So.
Well, and two, you think of like a lot of big companies, a lot of really successful companies, and they have, whether it's the people running the companies or it's someone that they hired to sort of be that person, they always have an attractive character that brings people in. Obviously, you in with Jiu-Jitsu, and you got Jocko and all these different people bringing those in. I think it's important. It's not an insignificant thing to have that, because it changes the company. I mean, you look at old businesses and they would all have different brands and they would put a face to it, and you have a face, you have a mission with it. I mean, that's a significant thing. One question I have for you, and this is again going back to like how you're dealing with things, because like I remember when we were at the camp last year, I'm riding around with you, and for like a day or two or whatever it was, and I remember thinking like, I remember having this kind of this thought, because I'm walking around and I'm seeing that the campers there are just having a ball. They're relaxed. They're just everybody's just relaxed, laying in the sun, doing jujitsu. I mean, they're just so relaxed. They're detached from all this stuff. And then I was riding around with you,
Yeah.
and it's like talking on the phone, going here, like everybody's coming at you. You know what I mean? And it was it was so interesting to see the difference between the two. You know, and it's like talking to the Jocko Fuel people, and then going over here, and then like then even being around Jocko, like, oh, there's some politician in town that wants to meet you.
Yeah.
It's all happening at once. Is there anything, and maybe that you feed off this, and this is just the way that it is, but I imagine there's probably a time where you're like, I need to breathe a little bit. Is there anything that you do? And I have a hunch about something that you might do, but is there anything that you do in the midst of all of this to sort of keep yourself centered, to keep yourself anchored, to basically give yourself a little bit of breathing room so that this way you don't feel like you're basically being given away too much so that you don't have anything left for yourself?
It's good. It's another great question. I am I guess you could say an ADHD personality. All right. So yeah, the doctor wanted to medicate me as a kid, and my mom didn't. She didn't medicate me.
You had a gift.
Yeah, I look at it as a superpower. When harnessed, it's a superpower. So so I have a lot of energy. People confuse that with being an extrovert. Okay. They think because someone is like hyperactive or whatever, their mind is all over, they think that that person is also an extrovert. It's not the case. I'm an introvert. I'm actually an INFJ in the Myers-Briggs. So like I'm an introvert, you know, and I like one-on-one conversations and relationships. So you know, my wife made me take my love language test a few months back. It's
Yeah.
actually on one of our YouTube videos on the Origin page. And you know, my love language was it personal time, I think is what it was. I don't know. There's all these love language or whatever. And so people confuse me being an like a hyperactive and enjoying personal time, one-on-one, driving around with you in the golf carts, personal time. I do that shit all day long, every day. If I had a line of 500 people that I needed to talk to, and I could spend time with each one of those individual, good to go. If I'm like, I'm going out to do like a talk, you know, with 1,000 people or whatever, like that's no factor. I have personal time with them or the audience or whatever. What I don't do is I don't go to bars. I don't go to clubs. If the restaurant fills up, I'm the first one out. Like when there's tons of people in a crowded room, different than jujitsu, where you're there and you guys are all there for a reason, and you're there for this for a passionate purpose.
Sure.
That's much different. I didn't grow up. I didn't go to parties. I didn't go to parties in college. You know, like I didn't go to raves. It's just that's not my jam. I'm very, very uncomfortable in those circumstances. So just to separate what, you know, having a hyperactive personality is, and that ADHD being a superpower, and being an introvert and enjoying personal time, as opposed to a chaos of people around you. I can do that all day long, like what I do at camp. I get my fulfillment from that. You know, I like going left brain, right brain. I like going between brands. As long as I don't make a bad decision, which sometimes, you know, is inevitable. I never get tired of it. I get up in the morning, I'm on the phone with Kip or, you know, somebody else talking about business. I work 7 days a week. I can't sit around and just lay around in the sun. My wife can't. I can't. I have to be moving and I have to be going. And because my touch points are usually singular, I get my fulfillment from that. So I don't need a break from it. I don't need a break from it. But when I get into a creative mode, I have an idea and I want to try to bring it to life either through design or writing. That's when I do detach from that. And I have Erica clear my schedule, no meetings. And I have my sanctuary here in my office. 3 people have the key card to get in here: my wife, my father-in-law, and myself. So, you know, it's like, this is my sanctuary. So if I need to be creative, I'll detach from that. And on a daily basis, I do take time to work out every day, every single day. Jiu-Jitsu, or in the gym, calisthenics, weight training, kettlebells, body weight stuff, and I also like ride a mountain bike. And I enjoy being out in the woods and going off trail and stuff. So those are the moments that I detach simply to. I have so much energy, I need to get more out every day. If I couldn't get more out every day, I'm a hard like person to deal with because people people feel like they can't keep up, like it's like the pace is not sustainable. You know what I mean? And I've learned that my superpower can be someone's kryptonite because they then think that they're not going hard enough or fast enough or thinking the way they need to think. So I don't want my superpower to be your kryptonite and suck your energy and your creativity and your potential. And so I have to take care of that in the gym. So I do 2,000 calorie workouts. I do 3,000 calorie workouts. I push myself to the max, every day, every week to try and get all the extra out so I can kind of be a little bit of a normal human being when I'm around my peers. So jiu-jitsu for me is like, man, it's like it's the best thing from a meditation perspective. Jiu-jitsu for me is the best thing. Like getting on the mats, I usually just invite 1 or 2 or 3 people to train, and we go. Timer goes on. Like if you stop, you're done. We go until we're just like, all right, enough is enough. So I like doing the hour-long, 2-hour-long rolls, no breaks, no water, just go, 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 go. And I have a great team around me that loves that same type of I don't know, same type of workout and training. So yeah, I mean that's jujitsu, getting in the gym, expelling energy. Um, it's funny because we were writing up some copy for our new training line. We're releasing a new training line. It's called the
Mm.
RTX line: Roll, Train, Execute.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Nicole was telling me about it.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
some new innovative textiles. Our training tops. They have that silver wick. We put it on one of our early keys. It's antimicrobial property on the tops, and the bottoms we have 2 variations. One's a Nogi RTX, the other one is Training RTX. So the Nogi one, a little bit looser fit, comfort fit, no pockets obviously, and then the Training one, which is really positioned for like working out, has like pockets in it. Um, but we were talking about copy for this training line, and we were writing some copy and coming up with these ideas. Like it's not for people who need a down day, who need to relax and be left alone, to have their beer, and chill out. It's actually for people who are all about active recovery. Active recovery. I'm going to move to recover. I'm not going to be sedentary to recover. That's who this line is built for. And it's a different take. It's not for the hardcore gym bros. It's not. It's for people who appreciate the movement and friction of life, who want to stay healthy, who are lifestyle athletes, who enjoy active recovery, not looking to check out from their family and check out from life and go disappear and get loaded and whatever. So it's for a different mindset. And that's the world I live in every day.
I want to ask maybe on a different, switch gears just a little bit.
Sure.
Everybody's got things they're proud of, things they've accomplished, and then some things sometimes maybe you wish you could change, or any regrets. Do you have any regrets as far as being a business owner, or maybe some mistakes that you've learned from, even on the jiu-jitsu mat, some things you maybe, have made some errors that you could have learned from as well?
A lot of tuition payments over the years. I don't believe in failure unless physical failure. You're like physical, like your body's physically failing, or your friend or family members' physical failure. I think everything else in life is a transition to something else, and something new, and can be an opportunity to something different and new. So As far as mistakes, or tuition payments, I wouldn't change a thing about what we've done with Origin. I appreciate everywhere I had to learn the hard way, and I think that's what creates long-term wisdom. If you don't go through hard shit, if you don't go through hard times, you can't have the experiential knowledge to learn what to do in the future. And I think that's where wisdom comes from, facing those things, and figuring out how to move forward and pivot around them, or whatever it is to get through it. So yeah, no changes there as far as like regrets. Like I don't have any regrets, man. I think if I was to put a regret out there, it would only be what I've inflicted on myself by not always taking care of myself, and putting the business before me. So I can say that over the past decade, my health has been up and down. I would go times where I would be working 100 hours a week on the company, and I would take no time to watch my diet, or stretch before working out, or even get the amount on the mats or in the gym I wanted to. But most importantly for me, it was dietary. I didn't care. It was like, man, oh, it's lunchtime, got to eat, or it's dinner time, got to eat. So my health has like fluctuated over the past decade. It's on like a yearly cadence. I get in shape for camp, because everybody wants to kick your ass at camp, or try to. And then after camp, I'm like, cool, I can coast till next August. So it's been like the past decade has been like, um, hard charge, make sure I'm camp ready, hard charge. Make sure I'm camp ready, hard charge. And so after COVID, I turned 40, in just before COVID, and I had this like, all right, man, I'm 40, I'm like halfway through my life, hopefully I can live a lot longer than 80, but just looking at the statistically a bigger person, and I started to think about some things and how I needed to change my life. I spent a decade in the grind of building Origin and giving everything to the company and Jocko Fuel, giving everything to it. My health, my time, capital, my family's time. And for all the good that's come out of it, for everything, for myself, my family, my friends, our employees, the company, my partners, my health was never force ranked to the top of that list. So I decided to kind of take control of that, and make a real commitment to me when it comes to health. So I have a spreadsheet. It's a finance spreadsheet, and I took out the variables for like cost, margin, profit, and I replaced them with like calories in, workouts, calories out. So I have a financial spreadsheet for health. And every morning I come in, I apply the day before's inputs to this financial spreadsheet, and I'm tracking it against my goals for this year till December 31st. So I started an effort to get myself to think about my body as a business. I said, well, if I was thinking about my body as a business, and I want to try to extend my life, but more importantly, I want to be able to move and be physically active. I want to be able to train and lift and run and bike and hike and do all these things. I don't want to be broken, because I'm physically broken. I physically have had 4 reconstructive surgeries, ankles, knees, shoulders. I physically have bulging discs, another torn labrum, 2 tears in my meniscus, and I'm physically like, I put my body through the ringer through high school and then Division I sports and then jiu-jitsu. I really put it through the ringer. So treating my body like a business is, what you put in is what you get out. And so I've just shifted my mind to think that body as a business and business is the same thing. I've got to treat it the same way. And the only way for me to do that was to design a different way to do it. And that was based off of a financial spreadsheet, and I built my own spreadsheet to track the health of the business of my body the same way I track the health of the business. And it's been really helpful. And I just wish I could have started that sooner. I wish I had the foresight to do that earlier on. But I guess when you're doing something and you're all in on it, you lose balance. It's like with anything, you're going to lose balance in life at some point. It take you a day, a week, a month, a year, or a decade to course correct. So this one just took me a little bit longer.
Well, and balance is kind of like a perfect balance, and harmony is kind of a misnomer. I mean, because like you said, if you go into a creative phase and you lock the door and say, clear out my schedule, you're balanced towards making that goal happen.
Yes.
And then if you can back off for camp, or if you got to change your schedule for camp, you're balanced for that. I mean, it's constantly in flux, right?
Yeah.
So Pete, so I know you've got a lot of things, on the plate. Obviously, you've got everything from Jocko Fuel to Origin. And I know with Origin, you're always coming up with something new. I know Nicole sent me a few things that I'm going to check out that are going to make it on a vlog coming up soon, because she sent me some new gear to try out. And I know you've been working on a documentary. What are some of the things that you have going on that you can talk about right now for the people listening?
Yeah. So the documentary, we started it in 2019. And then we lost 20. I remember calling up Steve. He was in Italy filming. And I was like, hey, man, you got to get your ass back to the US. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, dude, there's this thing spreading out of China and it's about to hit Italy. And so we had to shut down for 2020 and half of 21. And we got back on it. He spent all of 22, he spent 13 months in Europe straight, chasing the stories and filming all sorts of things, historians and curators and lots of different people. The film will probably end up being a limited series. It'll probably end up being a 4-part series.
Okay.
The goal is to get it on a Netflix. It's been self-financed. It's been a good sized project, and without like giving away what it's about, it covers a lot of the stuff we talked about earlier on in the podcast. And hopefully will inject hope back into humanity. But it's a look at what's happened over the past 30 years and why did it happen? And exposing people, common people like us, to the why. What happened to our communities, what happened to the people, what happened to the jobs, what happened to the knowledge, and why is everything decaying, and who's responsible? And so it looks at that through a special lens that will unite people around a common goal. And without talking about that special lens, it's a lens that, transcends borders and countries, and is a wedge into the psyche of humanity, so that they'll be able to listen to and hopefully accept this message, and also facilitate change. And so it looks at the past, the present, and the future, how we got here, where we are, and how we can change the trajectory of where we're going. Should be very powerful. I think we have like, I don't know, 40 to 50 interviews from all over the world. Just phenomenal footage from Scotland, London, France, Normandy, Paris, Rouen, Nîmes, Genoa, Italy, Rome, all the way through the American North and the American South and the American West, and how stories over the last couple centuries have tied us all together, and what the purpose is behind all of it, and how what we're kind of doing in my personal journey runs in parallel, and the mission of what we're doing runs in parallel with all of that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, without even telling you guys what it's about.
All right. Interested to see it.
Yeah. Also excited, really excited about just this year. Like, we spent a decade, 2013, we built our factory, and it's 2013. So we're a decade of making stuff in America, starting from one sewing machine. 5,000 square feet to I don't even know how many sewing machines and how many employees, but a lot of everything. This is our first year of actually building the brand. Like before this, we were trying to figure out if it was possible. It was just a proof of concept sandbox of sorts. So it's year one of actually building the brand. And so it's the first year of having a full product line and seasonal line plan. So I'm really, really excited to bring the world some really innovative gear and apparel rooted in jiu-jitsu. Remember, everything we do comes from building a garment in jiu-jitsu, building a jiu-jitsu gi, figuring out how to build the most durable gi because you're trying to rip the clothing off of your friend. And so everything we build takes that into consideration. So some of the stuff we're doing this year from a training line in jiu-jitsu, obviously our new weaves. We have this Nano Pearl weave, which is a new take on an old school pearl weave, and our Raptor weave, which hasn't been released yet. We have a new pant, this jiu-jitsu pant. It's got a one-way flex across your thigh and your seat, so there's a little bit of stretch when you squat and move. But if somebody pulls your pant, it's taut, it's zero stretch, so you can strip grips, yet you can move really freely. So we're bringing some, and it's mechanical. It's stretch. So it's the way the fibers are woven allows it to flex that direction. It doesn't have anything to do with elastic. So some innovations in our new flex pant that's going to be paired with our new Raptor weave, which is a new weave we developed. I'm really excited about that. But as far as the line itself, between our knitwear and our wovens, our hunting line, we have some new innovations. And then at the end of the year, we're bringing out the stuff everybody's going to love, which is just good core basics in solid colors, like a nano wool base layer, a stealth wool jacket. We're doing a puffy jacket. We're doing an outer shell. We're doing a stow jacket, which is like a windbreaker. So it's like the stuff that we all buy, right, from other brands, but built with origin innovation, born on the ground in America, American textiles we developed, in bringing it to life. These are the type of items that you can only buy and have made in China. We're going to make in America again, which is a phenomenal feeling. I cannot wait to release this core line, in our denim and bottoms business. Really, we're gonna explode. Origin will be known as like an apparel company, and it's a company that people will be like, oh, it's Origin. They'll never look at the tag. They'll never have to look at the tag to see where it's made. Every other brand in the world, you're going to have to look at the tag. Even the ones say made in America, you still got to look at it because not everything is made in America. It's like buying New Balance shoes. I'm going to check and see if these ones were made in Maine or Massachusetts or if these ones were made in overseas. With Origin, you never have to worry about that. So it's the one brand you don't have to check the tag. You see the wave of freedom. You know it was made in America. You know it was built by freedom. It's good to go. So the stuff we're coming out with, I'm just really excited to bring to the world because people are purchasing this stuff from other brands and they wish they could purchase it from us because they don't have to check the tag because they can't trust it. So I'm excited to bring some of that to life. And then obviously when you come to our website in the future, you're going to be able to see the offering of tactical, footwear. We're working on a sneaker, hunting, jiu-jitsu and training, and then lifestyle core apparel. And when we have that complete by the end of the year, whether you're surfing from a brand like Arc'teryx or Burton or Patagonia or Under Armour or Origin, you actually have a selection of stuff to purchase, like, damn, they did it. They built it. They've done it. Like the stuff America needs, the stuff we need as men and consumers, like, because it's men's gear right now. You could figure Origin like a Lulu in reverse. Lulu started in yoga. I love yoga. No knocks on yoga. I do yoga 2 or 3 times a week. I have to for my back.
Sure.
But it started in yoga with really comfy, tight fitting leggings. And then they took what they learned and they applied it to men's, active wear. And we're in reverse. We started in jiu-jitsu. We started in something hardcore. And we're building for men first. And we're getting our textile, we call them platforms, right? We're reinventing these platforms in America, textile platforms that then will be applied to our line. And eventually we'll get into women. So it's like, it's in reverse. Textiles come first, the fabric, the fit, comes second. Function is third, and then form. So we're not a fashion company. It's not form, then function. It's the fabric, the fit, the function, the form. So just excited to take that methodology and our platforms and bring it to the world, because you're only going to have to shop in one location, and that's with Origin, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm trying to clean out my closet for all the new stuff.
Hell yeah, bro. That's awesome.
It's cool. Yeah, my I was actually Chewy. What's the weave of your gi, the Origin gi that you have made? Do you remember?
The one that I had made was the Athleta.
Yep.
So it's, which again, I took I was curious because I remember I was like, you can almost see through it if you get close enough.
Yeah.
And like I put it in the wall on one of my videos, I put it in the washer, and then I wanted to see like how long it took to dry it.
Yeah.
And the damn thing comes out of the wash almost feeling like it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Threw it in the dryer for a few minutes, it was ready to go. The other one was still sopping wet, so
I was doing gi class, and you were switching partners doing grips and stuff like that. And this guy, Mike, grabs my gi. He goes, "Your gi's so soft." I was like, yeah, because it like feels good. Like it feels good. It's not like super rigid, but he just looked at me, he stopped. He's like, "Man, your gi is super soft." I was like, "I know." It's awesome. Yeah. And it dries like super, super quick. And I love it. My wife started training, seriously started training. And she's like, "When are they going to have women's stuff?"
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I want Origin gi.
We're working on it. We're
for sure.
We're living into Jiu-Jitsu, like one of the things we say is we are Jiu-Jitsu. Like Origin, we are Jiu-Jitsu. We're not a fashion brand. We are Jiu-Jitsu, born on the ground. And part of owning Jiu-Jitsu is women's and kids. And so we've got plans for that for next year.
Super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome, man. So what's the website if people want to get Origin gear? Where do they go?
OriginUSA.com. OriginUSA.com. That's where you get Origin gear. Man, we've got a plethora. I think we've got like 12,000 rash guards in stock right now. Plethora of rash guards, 100% made in America. You don't even need to check the tag. Knit, and sewn right here in New England. And and our jiu-jitsu gis are, they're the best in the world. And we all know that, but they're the best in the world. So OriginUSA.com is where you can get all jiu-jitsu gear and grab a pair of jeans, because they're the most badass jeans in the world too. And everything else we make, we try to make, like I said, fabric, fit, function, form. So it should be the one thing you reach for in the dryer. We say it's got to pass the dryer test. You're sorting through all the bullshit. You want to pull that one thing out. Everything we make is that one thing.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Yeah. Thanks, fellas, for having me on. It's good times.
Yeah. Thanks,
absolutely, man. All right, guys. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Hopefully you guys got something from it, whether it be something like a tip or a strategy that you think that you could maybe use. There was some stuff for me as a business owner that I was writing it down, or even just kind of an interesting thing. I mean, again, hearing about someone trying to bring back jobs. We hear, politicians talk bullshit, right, about like bringing back jobs. They don't bring back jobs. People like Pete, business owners, guys that are in the trenches, those are the guys that make the jobs happen, right? Governments are and again, I'm not trying to get political, but governments are in the business of taking money from us and then telling us what they're going to do with it, right? Like business owners, people that create companies, those are the people that are in the business of actually making businesses, of making jobs, things like that. And again, having someone that wants to do it in an ethical way that supports his fellow citizens and things like that, I think is a beautiful thing. And I'd like to see, more of that.
Yeah. I think he's doing something with bringing jobs to the States, but also he's like bringing skills back. It's like these people are learning. We're learning these skills that were like, I almost like wanted to ask him, like, he's almost been like at the right place at the right time. Like a month away or something different. Some of these things could have been lost. Some of these manufacturing plants or even these people that have this knowledge could have not been here to share it. And so he's kind of like reinvigorating that stuff and just like keeping these skills here and kind of like reteaching it to like a new generation of workers. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yes. Like when we were up at last year when I was up at the Origin camp, they were showing us the boot factory. And so the boot factory started, he wanted to make boots. Apparently Maine used to be like the boot factory. Like they had some big old boot factories up there, cool. And they left. Well, there was a guy that he knew from his hometown, right? That was like, who made boots at this plant for like 30 years or something, right? And so when he wanted to make this boot plant, he's like, okay, like I don't know how to make them. So he's like, this guy does. And so he hired this guy, and they went into some old factory and found these molds and stuff. And this one guy had this knowledge that, you know, in a couple of years would be lost.
Yep.
And then he's starting to teach everybody else. It almost makes me think of like almost like pollinating, right? It's like, you know, because like you said, these skills are then being continued, and then people can learn from these people. And like now it's like not going to go away. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to that company in the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Because you think about how many people we say it, right? Because again, everybody talks about the fact that we hate the fact that everything's made overseas. We hate the fact that we know that the labor that's being used to create a lot of the products is not in a way that we would, it's not in a way that we would say is in line with our views of human dignity and human rights, right? But we use it anyway because we don't have a choice. So now you're having a company that's saying, hey, we're going to produce things that you guys already buy, but you can buy it from an American company. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but hey, like that's what you said you wanted. And, you know, again, to his thing about the gis, like the origin gis, I've had that conversation with someone before. So like, man, the origin gis are expensive. You know, they're expensive, and they are expensive. You know, they're way more money than like a regular gi. Damn things are good gis. One, it's a good gi, but then two, it's made in America. It's made in America by people that are being paid a living wage. That, like, I've been to their factory. They're not sitting there like, you can tell that they're not miserable at work. I'm sure some probably are, just like with any job, but most of the people that I met, they were incredibly pleasant. You know, I was like seeing the guy that was putting some of these gis through this particular machine, and he's just humming along, smiling, and having a damn good day. And you're like, that's a beautiful thing. So like, why wouldn't I spend, I don't have to buy as many, right? My consumerism has to go down a little bit, but I would rather buy that than something else, right? So just something just to think about, you know. I like to support the companies that are trying to do the good work, and their Origin's not the only one. There are a lot of companies. If you do some research, if there's things that you buy and you're trying to find American companies that make them, do some research. A lot of times you can find a few that are out there, and sometimes they're good stuff, and you can get out there and buy them. Might cost you a little bit. You may not buy as much stuff as often, right? But again, you can know that you're supporting the thing that, again, is part of your core values as a human being. I think it's a beautiful thing.
And the quality, like I have an origin gi, I have a couple of them. And I think the quality of the gi is, first of all, it feels better to wear, and the quality, and it holds up. So you may not have to buy as many, maybe have less gis in your rotation, but it's like having a nicer product is so much more, it just feels better.
Yeah.
So
absolutely agree. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Again, if you want to support the podcast, lots of different ways to do it. You can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Upon joining, you'll get access to the exclusive library that we've prepared with content from people like Pete and from every guest we've ever had, along with some things such as stretching and warm-up routines for jiu-jitsu that Eugene created as a physical therapist. He has some ideas on that, as well as some seminars that I've recorded for techniques and some other different gifts that we have in there, and you get access to it. You can also do so by joining my email list. You can go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. That is my primary mode of connecting with people on a daily basis through email. When you join, you'll get access to a couple of free ebooks that will teach you how to create a game plan for your jiu-jitsu game, as well as how to focus your training towards the goals that you have. I think it's a pretty good thing to have personally. And you get my email afterwards, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Chewjitsu.net/join is the website. And guys, you can also support us by checking out our sponsors, charlottesweb.com. The promo code on their website, if you want to get any of the CBD products that they have available to you, whether you want the ones that will not make you piss hot for THC, which they have, you can check that out. Their Edge product, or whatever their products you want to check out, their gummies, their tinctures, their balms, everything else. Check them out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20, and you get 20% off. Also, thanks to Matt at Epic Roll. He's a longtime sponsor. He's been helping grow the podcast through his sponsorship. And you can check him out at epicrollbjj.com. If you get on there, they've got everything from apparel to gear, rash guard, shorts, gis, the whole thing. Anything jiu-jitsu related that you'd be interested in. High quality stuff, cool designs. epicrollbjj.com is the website. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And also thanks to Manscaped for supporting the podcast. They are the premier men's grooming company out there. Again, whether you are looking to step up your grooming game or you have a man in your life that you would like to get a gift for, Again, it could be a great option for you. Go to their website at manscaped.com. Look around on the website. They have everything from trimmers to colognes to balms to lotions, everything and anything that you need for the grooming game of a male. You can do so by going to their website at manscaped.com. And then the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20, and that's for 20% off the order plus free shipping. So guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.